What's up, everybody, and welcome to Hot Corner Rant with your host Tommy Blood and my main man and partner in crime, Shane Clune. And Shane, say what's up to everyone.
What's up, everyone?
So, dude, I got to say this: when we launched that first episode, a lot of people were reaching out to me saying, one, you and I have wonderful chemistry, which I was like, "What the hell do you think I reached out to Shane to do this with me all these years ago?" But the other thing too is people were very excited about not only what we had to talk about, but they were very curious about this next coming episode, which, it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, dude, I think today we're talking about our college baseball experiences between JUCO and whatnot. And after last week, like you said, a bunch of the high school guys all said that they watched. A bunch of prior athletes I had watched, so I'm excited to see where this one goes.
Yeah. And then before we go into our crazy JUCO stories, and it's not going to be anything like, you know, the crazy stuff, that college ball players get into, but, it's an informant thing because everybody says they want to play college baseball. They have no idea what it takes on and off the field. And, I would say, like, a lot of this upcoming generation just doesn't fully understand. Everyone has this goal. Oh, I want to play Division 1 baseball. Oh, I want to play the major leagues. And then you say, all right, you're willing to practice on a Saturday? What? No, I can't practice on a Saturday. I got to go surfing. I got to go hang out with my girlfriend. And it's like, there's things that you have to give up in order to achieve success at these levels. And it's not just a giving up, like your free time to just to go train baseball. It's also taking care of your grades, eating healthy. Like you have to give up some stuff to be really successful. And, sometimes our coaches put it into our head that we need to do that by reminding us in a calm manner or reminding us in a pretty intense manner, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I think it all comes down to, I mean, I have a very busy schedule, right? I think you do as well. It's just putting time into our craft and to really go from the student athlete mindset to a professional athlete mindset, I think was a huge jump.
Mhm.
Because, yeah, I had my games on the weekends to worry about, and I also had my exams and everything to worry about during the week, so I think there was a big split in, you know, time where I was able to worry about baseball, worry about school. Once we kinda got into the professional phase and school and work was kinda pushed to the side, it was just baseball, baseball, baseball.
Yeah, and you know what? I tell people all the time, sometimes circumstance determines on what school you're going to go to. And I brought you up to a lot of my players, not because of where you went, but also why you made the decision to go to the school you went to because it had a phenomenal pharmacy program. And you knew, hey, if I'm not playing Major League Baseball, you want to be a pharmacist. And all the schools that you had opportunity to play at didn't have a pharmacy program. And it was like, for you, it's like, man, if I go to a school that doesn't have a pharmacy program and that's what I want to do with the rest of my life if I'm not playing a sport, why go to that school? Because I'm just, you're wasting your time. And I think, I tip my cap for that decision you made, man. I wouldn't have been mature enough to make that decision at 18 years old. That's for sure.
Yeah, dude, it was close school, 25 minutes from home. I was thankful that they had a club baseball team. And, if I would have chose a different route, I would have never met, Joe in the Black Sox through college ball, and my whole future would have changed. So I think that whether it was a good decision to go to that school or not, and to, play divisional college baseball, it got me to where I am now, and we wouldn't have this podcast without it. So
No,
I'll I'll,
true.
I'll take it.
And I will say this, my first experiences in college, like I wouldn't say they were like dark days, but I was so inexperienced. I was so unaware of what I had to prepare for. It was like I had the skill for it, but my mind was just not college ready. So it felt like I was 2 years behind. It's crazy because there's things I wish I could have taught myself. And, one big thing is, and I was like this at the start of my college career anyway. And I feel like a lot of kids don't think like this, but you have to do whatever it takes. And I'm going to bring up this story because it's an Avila story that we talked about. Nowadays, no kid, well, it's to an extent, but majority of kids don't really go to the high school they're supposed to go to in California nowadays. Everyone goes to the school that's going to help them out the most, whether it be they're going to the school that's out of their district because the academics are better at this school, or they're going to a school out of their district because it's a better sports program. And, I've had this common thing where I have a few players that I've coached in the high school for the past couple of years that they don't live in the district. So when you host specific workouts and stuff, they're like, oh man, I can't make it because I don't have a ride and I just can't walk there. And it got me thinking about one of my college days where I was at Avila. And I swear to God, I was always a very punctual person, but it also was one of those things where I lived so close to the school, I could be a little bit lazy. And even though I was a little lazy, I was like, oh, hey, we have 6 a.m. weights. Cool. I'm going to wake up at 5:49, be ready to go, and I'll be at the school in like 5 minutes. And this one day in particular, I don't know why. I just happened to wake up a lot earlier, and I was up at 5:30, did my thing, got out. I couldn't sleep the night before, and I go to start my car. I turn it on. My car's not starting. And I swear to God, instead of being a normal person, calling one of my teammates for a ride, going back into my house and knocking on my roommate's door saying, hey, I need a ride to weights. What do? I decided to drop my keys in my car, grab my headphones, and I took off to school, forgetting that, yes, it was a 1 mile run, but I had to run up the hill, down the hill, up the hill, down the hill. And next thing you know, I end up at Avila's weight room. I'm 2 minutes late. My face is red. I'm sweating. Captains on my team are about to rip me a new one. Like, why the hell are you late? And next thing you know, I'm out of breath. And one of the seniors is like, Blood, did you run to school? And I was like, and they're like, oh my God. They're like, why'd you run to school? I'm like, car wouldn't start. Strength and conditioning coach comes out. He goes, Blood, you look like shit. By the way, I heard you ran here. Great news. We're doing heavy squats. And I was like, oh, come on, man.
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, dude, I'll never forget it. I missed the bus one time going to high school. And thankfully, I live close enough to the high school that it's a walkable thing, but it's still a hike. And dude, I showed up, I had these white shoes. I came into the locker room, I walked through the mud up at Miners Park, and then all the way through the bus garage, all the way up to the high school. And I just remember I was a disaster. And I had all my baseball stuff. I got in, and the first person I walked into, I was young too. First person I walked into is the high school baseball coach. Same exact thing. Clinton, did you walk here? You're a mess. Yes, coach. And it's just a whole disaster from there. But yeah, dude, it's the little stories like that that you're never gonna forget, but they teach you a little bit of discipline on the back end.
And you know what? Car problems were a thing for me in junior college too. And it's one of those things where, like, nowadays, if a player doesn't have a ride, he just won't show up or find a way to come to practice. Where me, it was like, okay, crap, my transmission's out. So you have to strategize a little bit. Okay, do I have to get a ride from my teammate? Uber wasn't really popular when I was in junior college. So I never Ubered. So me, my parents, or we just had to like kind of strategize on how we were getting someone to school or something. Like, it was sometimes it can be a complete pain in the ass, but you know what? That's the thing about being a college athlete. It's discipline and it's finding a way to do what you're supposed to do. Because you know what? What people don't understand is you made the choice to play college sports. You made the choice to
Exactly.
go to this school. They don't care what the circumstance is. You have to get in there and get the job done. Because at the end of the day, we're adults when you get to college. You're 18 and over. You could do a few things as an 18-year-old. So it's like, I made the choice to go to a school an hour away from home. So how am I going to get to practice every day on time? Now, luckily, like, my junior college wasn't far, but it's
Mhm.
still one of those things where you have to be ready to go. Like, I remember I wasn't very good at when it came to traffic. So I felt like I was always rushing, always being late and stuff. And it was a hurdle I had to jump where it's like, oh man, now I need to be organized. Now I need to get out of the house by this time. I have to have all my ducks in a row just so I know, okay, hey, I didn't forget my gear. I didn't forget this. I didn't forget that. And you know, I had this bad thought where when I was in high school, I thought, man, once you get to college sports of any kind, you've got the locker room, you've got all this gear, you've got this, you've got that. And when I first got to Santa Ana College, I realized maybe that's not all college sports because we did not have our own locker room. We
No,
had to
you don't
pay
got
for our gear. Like,
anything.
Like, it's crazy to me how I go to Santa Ana College and Avila University. You go to these schools, and you get there, and they give you like two Santa Ana shirts or two Avila shirts. Where my brother's going to Cal State Fullerton, and he actually had to use my bed one time to show how much gear he got. He had like five short sleeves, five long sleeves, two sweaters, one windbreaker, and I'm sitting there like, damn, you got four pairs of shoes, a pair of turfs, a pair of cleats, two running shoes. And he's like, you didn't get any of this when you were at Avalon? I was like, no, I had to pay for all my
I
stuff.
was gonna say, yeah, I had to pay $300 for my own gear.
Yeah. I didn't have to pay as much for my gear, but it was like, I think I was spending like $100 to get like the two shirts, the shorts, and like, they lasted me a couple of years. So I
Yeah,
didn't
of
really
course.
get, but if I had to do it over again, if I have kids now and they don't go to a powerhouse D1 or they go to high school, I'm just going to be like, look, I'm gonna buy you multiple dry fits just so you're not, because dude, there were some times where you got one, two dry fits, and now you're wearing the same thing 2, 3 days in a row because you're just like, oh crap, I need something.
The old 3 for 25 special.
Oh my god, yeah. No, it's definitely something.
Alright, dude. Well, going into your JUCO, your college athlete levels, we all know that you played. Let's talk about some stats. If these people are gonna listen to us, let's give them a reason. Why are we where we're at now? What were your college stats?
So it's kind of funny you say that. My first year, my redshirt freshman year as a JUCO player, coach told me I wasn't even gonna get playing time, like no playing time at all. And I was totally okay with it because you know what? I'm gonna be honest, and I tell my players all the time. When you're fighting for a position, if you want to get better, you have to be honest with yourself. That first year under my coach, I had a shitty fall. I don't think I had a hit all fall. That's how bad I think I was. So the coach said, look, I like your attitude. I like this. I like that. You're on the team. So I was like, oh, sweet. I'll be the last guy off the bench. I'm totally cool with it. And I ended up getting 30 at bats and managed to get 16 hits, which I don't know what in the hell happened, but I got hot at the right time and I finished my freshman year with a 533 batting average.
There you
And
go.
yeah, and then going into sophomore year, I got 30 at bats again for some reason. But unfortunately, I was more of a pinch hit designated role. And I hit 200 because my big problem was I was so used to starting the year before, even though it was only 30 at bats, that coming off the bench and not being hot and your mind kind of wanders when you don't have a specific role. So I'm like, oh, I want to get back in that starting lineup. And I'm trying to hit a 5 run bomb every time. So I ended up hitting 200 that year. And then when I transferred to Avila, I transferred with a lot of anger, thinking, man, I deserve to be a D1 athlete. I know I could hit at this level. So I told myself, okay, you can't hit like shit at this school. And my first year there, I hit 365 and tore it up,
There
made
you
all
go.
conference. And then my senior year, I actually, I don't remember the exact numbers. I think I hit 320, but I also broke my face that year.
Oh, well, how'd you we'll have to get into how you did that.
Yeah.
But, dude, all a lot of years, what, 3 out of 4 over 300?
Yeah, like, it was a ride and,
Yeah.
it was a consistency, but, that's one thing. And I try to tell a lot of people this, even though my stats were solid overall, especially when you're trying to make that jump to a professional level, you can't just worry about your stats because if it was all about stats, every guy who hits over 300 at any level would get drafted. Any guy who has under a 2 ERA at any level would get drafted, even if they're throwing 40 miles an hour, you know?
Right, so being able to have that success 3 out of 4 years, what do you attribute kinda like your work towards? What was your pregame routine, your tea routine, practice routine? What were you doing that was so special? Because like you said, anybody over a 300 hitter at any level of baseball is, legit because you still gotta put a round ball and a round bat, and it's still gotta break through the fielders.
Well, my freshman year, I attribute the success to I was so happy to be on the field because I was told at the beginning of the season I wasn't going to get any playing time. So I kind of went in there with that I have nothing to lose mentality. If I go four
Okay.
for four and I end up on the bench, that's four more at bats than I was promised. If I go 0 for 4, so you play with no pressure. You're just like, okay, enjoy it. And my routine actually stayed the same from freshman year of college to senior year, where it's like you show up to if the coach says be there at 10 o'clock in the morning, I would get there at around 9, kind of stretch out, take some swings off the tee, and if someone was there, I'd do some short toss. And I focused in college. I focused way too much on hitting, which obviously the success is there, but I wasn't doing as much, defensive work, which that was where I struggled. But it
Okay.
was I'd have a full hitting routine. I'd hit the tee, I'd hit soft toss. As I got into my Avila days, I didn't hit as much before games because it was like, hey, if you're hitting like shit before a game, you don't want to bring that into the game. But if
Right,
you're
right.
hitting hot, like your first 4 or 5 swings, you're like, ooh, like let's keep kind of that rhythm. My big thing was stretch out, get moving, but like be loose before a game so you can play with that kind of confidence. And that's what my routine was centered around, especially because I knew if I ever went into funks, it's because my confidence was gone. So to be honest with you, and I can't believe I'm going to say this on the air, anytime I went into a slump, first thing I would do is I'd go on a date with a 9, a 10, like a dime piece, because I swear to God, the next day after my date, I'd be walking into the locker room or the cage like, I'm the baddest dude on campus. And I'm just like, dude, I just went on a date with one of the hottest chicks I've ever seen. I'm not going over 3 today.
I don't know. I always heard you forget how to hit when you get a girlfriend. That's why I'm a pitcher.
Yeah, they were never my girlfriends. I just went on a date with them. But yeah, you
Oh,
do forget how to
jeez.
hit sometimes if you get a girlfriend.
Well, hey, dude, I mean, keeping at it with that routine for 4 years though, clearly it worked. It sounds a lot like something we talk about to our high school guys. You went in there with a no regrets mentality. Does that
Hmm.
sound about right? You were gonna
Yeah,
put it all out there on the field no matter what, and you weren't gonna walk off regretting like, "Oh, I should have taken that pitch. Oh, I should have swung at this one." It was a no regrets attitude and, you were playing balls to the wall.
yeah. My last 2 years, because I went to an NAI and people told me, hey, you have no chance to be a professional going to an NAI. I basically said, okay, you're going to win a starting spot at Avila. That was the mentality because, a lot of these guys don't get their Division 1 offer and they're quick to, oh, I'm just not going to play because it's not Division 1. Where I said, you know what? If I deserve to be a D1 athlete, then I should be starting at this school. So now we put in the work to be the starter. And once we became the starter, it was like, okay, apparently you have no shot to play pro baseball, at least from the naysayers, the critics, and everything. So you say, all right, let's go out, balls to the wall. We have nothing to lose, and let's have fun. I swear to God, I acted like Yasiel Puig. I'm throwing the bat in the air. I'm socking my chest. I actually made a diving play where I hit the ground and I smacked the turf and just jumped up and yelled like I was some sort of nut job, Like
Attaboy.
I was also pretending to shotgun the beer on second base. That was my double celebration. If my school had a
Yeah,
frat, you would have
dude.
thought I was a part of the frat. Thank God Avila does not have frats. I would have never joined, but like they would have been like, oh my God, this guy's part of the frats.
There you go. Well, dude, it sounds like it's a different mindset
Hmm.
is kind of where you're coming at it from.
Oh
So
yeah.
I see that all the time playing in different levels between men's league, professional, going on tours, stuff like that, down in Florida, and then just coaching in general. I think it's something that plagues leagues is that guys are like, okay, this is club ball. So
Mhm.
what? You know what I mean? I'm going to show up every weekend because it's something to do and I'm going to hang out. And that
Yeah.
was the mentality of a lot of guys. And you could see that like that's their peak, right?
Hmm.
And good for you, right? You have a little activity on a weekend. I'm glad you see it that way. But as a guy who has a different type of drive, right? You're useless to me. If you don't want to walk on this field and play to win, I don't care if it's a scrimmage. I don't care if it's a 21 and over men's league game, right? I'm not a fun guy to play with because I'm out there to win. And that's just
Yeah.
the end of the story. And I think you're the same way. But a lot of guys just have that mentality of this is it, there's no chance of going higher. Well, look at me, look at you, right? I played club ball. Here I am. You played NAIA. Here you are, right? And
Mhm.
both successful at the levels we're at. I think you don't find that attitude very often in athletes anymore because a lot
Mhm.
of guys just expect, all right, I'm going to go play Division 3 ball and that's going to be it. You
Yeah.
know, even if I go D1, then what, right? And then
Yeah.
they have a menial degree like you said, I think we're gonna focus on what your coach said about your academics in a little bit,
Mhm.
but you gotta set yourself up for life outside of baseball if baseball isn't your life.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, the worst season I had in college, it wasn't because I played bad or anything, but it's because some of these boys put so much pressure on themselves to do more than what they're built to do. Like, the year I hit 200, I was coming off the bench trying to hit a 5-run home run 600 feet, and it affected my game because I'm trying to overdo it to slingshot my way in the lineup.
Right.
But before we go into certain things of other college topics, I kind of want to hear more about. I don't know how detailed they were with stats on your club team because I do remember I did go to a meeting at your club for your
Yeah,
club
we
baseball
dude, we
team.
had full stats. I already have them pulled up.
Oh, look at you! Yeah, I
I'm
definitely want to hear,
excited.
especially because, like I said, you are freaking nasty on the mound.
Yeah, dude. So I appreciate that. If anybody knows anything about me as a pitcher, is I am the complete opposite of what you'd expect. I throw 6 pitches from up high and 3 pitches from subby, and the odds of you seeing a fastball are so low, and I think that's what makes me effective. So
I
I took
hated.
this into college, and I'm looking at it now. I think I joined up 2019, but we had COVID hit right before the season was about to start. So we didn't play really until 2020, where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we had 6 guys pitch in the 2020 season.
Wow.
I had 23.2 innings. The other 5 guys combined had 9, 10, 11.
Wait,
So I
all
was
those
out
guys
on the
combined had
mound.
11 innings.
Yeah, dude, so
What
I
the
had
hell,
double the rest of the pitching staff combined in
dude?
innings.
You were just going in there,
Well, the
like,
way club ball worked, and dude, I was getting 250 plus innings a year. It was ridiculous. But we played 2 games on Saturday and then 1 game Sunday.
okay.
So what I was doing, and again, your college coach, the one who passed, very, very similar situation with me with my college coach, Ken Barna. He trusted me from the day I walked out on that field, and
Mhm.
he saw that I had that confidence, the drive. He coached for the Orioles minor league. He's been high up. He's done a whole bunch of
Mhm.
college programs, successful whippeal programs around Pittsburgh, but he showed that he trusted me. So what I was able to do is I would walk out through a complete game first game Saturday. And then game 2 I would go play shortstop or I would catch
Oh
until it
my
was
god.
time that we needed a reliever. And then I would relieve game 2, go back to my dorm room, do my homework. I'm in pharmacy school, so I'm studying, and then wake up on Sunday morning and I'd usually start that Sunday game also.
Dude, Jesus Christ, I don't know how the hell your arm didn't fall off. And by the way, I've faced you when you've gone subby, and it's one of those things where like I've had like a very small amount of success, but the other times you'd go subby, and I'd be like, "Oh, dude, Shane's about to leave me a fat one." Then I'd get so like aggressive, and next thing you know, I'm on my front foot hitting something weak. But I think the best one I ever saw was when Don Andre Clark was facing you,
Yep,
and
yep.
you got him on his front foot too. And he is on the front foot. He hits you a ground ball, and mid swing, he's like, "Son of a bitch!"
Dude, Clark was one of the most fun guys to face. He would step in the box with the biggest smile on his face. You never knew what he was gonna do. He had that old school lefty swing, man,
He was a
and you
switch
never
hitter.
knew if he was gonna drive it into right field or if he was gonna chop it, but he was fast too.
Yeah.
So even on that Wild Things turf, when he would get that high chop,
Oh
he was
yeah.
beating out balls to second base, like, routinely. So when
He
I would pitch
was.
to him, I made sure, especially soften in, just because his swing, kinda like Shohei a little bit, pulled himself out, or
Yeah.
the only way to beat him was to bust him in on the hands.
Yeah, and you know what? One of the smartest players. It was funny because if I remember correctly, he got drafted out of high school, and I
Yes,
remember
I know he played for Lexington.
yes, he played for Lexington before they were an Atlantic League team,
Okay.
and I know. if I'm not mistaken, I can't remember. I think it was Trey Turner. He was in the same draft class as Trey Turner. I can't remember, but he was one of the fastest guys in that class, which is unreal because when he would play center field, he looks so nonchalant and so laid back. Then you rope a ball in the gap, like, oh, that's way over his head, but he's standing at the warning track. And you're like, dude, this guy can fly with the blink of an eye, you know?
He was a dream to have behind you for
Oh yeah.
sure.
Well,
And I
my
mean,
favorite.
dude, a lot of those guys, you were facing some of the best hitters,
Mhm.
that were available to face at the time, and they would put a rope on the ball. But
Yeah.
as long as it didn't go to left field at Wild Things Park, if it was center or right, you pretty much knew it was hanging in the ballpark. But those outfielders were the most trustworthy people. It was a no-fly zone no matter what. I watched guys, unsigned guys, dive through the fence and,
I remember
like,
that.
tear down netting just to catch a ball just to show that, like, they're in it, you know what I mean?
One thing I
And
hated diving at Wild Things Ballpark just because if you hit the turf hard enough, you're like, "Okay, that one
you
hurt a
hit
little
you
bit."
hit that concrete underneath, yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
tough.
No, but that was probably one of the more fun places I had playing, man, that league, that and Don Andre's commentary too, where if he fouled it off, he'd be like, "Oh, no!" And then, like, so you didn't know what he was gonna do, and you're just like, especially if you're playing against him, you're just like, I'm kind of entertained with the at bat, but like, please don't laugh mid swing because he might hit it by you.
Yeah, dude, his commentary is always hilarious. Like I said, just when he would step in the box, it was tough to even pay attention as a pitcher just because you were smiling, laughing back and forth with him.
Shoot, and I know this. We've talked a little bit about your stats. I know you played the 23 innings. I'm kind of curious before I ask you this next question, but what was your ERA and like your walkouts and strikes?
Yeah, let me pull that up again. So I was 2-1 with a 3.04 ERA. I had 6 games, 3 games started, 3 complete games, 2 saves and 2 save opportunities. Um, the whip wasn't great. I had 27 hits in 23 innings, but I work really well with runners on base. I've never been afraid to put the ball over the plate and let the defense make the double play after giving up a quick single. So pitching with runners on base was kind of routine for me. I never felt like I was in a stressful situation.
You know, it's
Um, 13 total runs, only 8 were earned.
wow.
No home runs, but what I pride myself on, like I said, is I put the ball over the plate.
Hmm.
I only had 6 total walks,
Oh
and I
wow.
had 31 strikeouts.
And what's
So
funny is the stats don't always tell the full story.
right,
Like you could have a high ERA, but it's also like if you're throwing it over the plate and guys just happen to hit it, like in a weird way, like when you give up hits, that's out of your control.
correct.
And it's also one of those things where it's like, well, because I've had discussions with players, I've had discussions with other coaches, and one time I put in a kid to pitch, and they were like, "Why are you putting him in? He gives up a lot of hits." And I said, "He doesn't walk anyone."
He doesn't
Like,
walk anybody. Yeah,
like
dude, and
I,
that's the philosophy I'm teaching my high school guys right now is, a 95-mile-an-hour ball doesn't help me.
mhm,
I would rather you throw like I do, slow and over the plate. And I teach my youth athletes, it's a question I ask a lot of my new pitchers. Would I rather you give up 40 balls in play or 4 walks in an inning
oh
or
yeah,
just in a game in general? And they're all like 4 walks. Well, why? 40 balls in play could be 40 outs, right?
mhm,
Hitters, and I preach this also. Hitters, especially high school hitters, they suck, right? A a decent pitching coach or someone who knows what they're doing can effectively beat them. Now, taking a high school pitcher and making those same pitches is where the downfall is,
mhm,
but it's very easy to beat these swings. And it's also baseball. You're supposed to get out, right?
yeah,
Even if I put the ball over the plate 1,000 times, the majority of the time, the batter's gonna find a way to either swing and miss, watch it, or get themselves out. So
mhm,
I've never been afraid to give up that hit because, yeah, next guy comes up, probably gonna roll into a double play if I execute my pitch the right way.
yeah. And it's funny you say that because I've looked, and now that I'm a head coach of a JV team, I'm constantly looking at statistics and stuff, and it's just kind of one of those things where you're like, okay, I noticed that like this, I have a really good pitcher, but his problem is the reason why he gets hit a little bit is his problem is he walks the bottom of the lineup hitters,
Mhm.
but he'll throw strikes to the top of the lineup hitters. So it's like one of those things where it's just like, dude, if we just continue to attack strikes with those bottom guys, as a pitcher, if you walk the weaker hitters, you're just helping the team out. And some people have given my team a little bit of grief, saying, "Hey, your team hits a lot of balls, but a lot of teams make a lot of errors. That's what helps you score a lot." And I'm like, "Look, my team doesn't hit poorly, but it's also out of a player's control. Where if we hit a ball hard at the third baseman, at the shortstop, we can't control where we hit it. But
Putting the ball in play,
yeah,
dude.
it
Yeah,
but
that's another
if they
thing.
kick it, it's kinda like, "Well, what do you want us to do? Be, like, mad that they kicked it?" Like, we hit the ball hard, we put it in play, and it just happened to be right at someone, and that's one thing, because so many people, they get so addicted to their statistics, and
Yes,
it's a problem
yes.
because it's like, the stats don't tell the full story. They don't like, yeah,
Correct.
you can hit, there was a guy that I played high school ball with, I remember he hit over 500 in high school, which is badass. But half of his 30 hits were bunt singles, which again, still awesome. But when you look at it, it's like, oh man, this guy's bunting on high school defenses and just he's too fast to defend.
Yeah, just
Is that gonna
executing it.
is that gonna work at the college level when everyone is a little bit faster? Everyone can make the routine play, all that stuff.
Yeah, you're scouted and whatnot for sure.
Mhm.
So, like you said though, with the ground balls getting booted, if we're talking to a youth audience here, I think in a lot of my drills when I am having hitters hit off of a tee, I see way too many cage bombs off a tee, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, what is that in a game? It's just a fly out to left field, right? A fly
Mhm.
out to center field. It's not helping anybody. So I preach the line drive up the middle, the hard ground ball. Everyone hits the hard ground ball off the tee and they're all like, deflated about it. But
Mhm.
then these are 9-year-olds, right? So I ask them, how often do on a dirt field, right? How often do you see, a ball take a bad hop or the shortstop bobble it, right? And they're like, pretty often, right? And then I said, on top of that, how often do you see a bad throw? Pretty often also, right? And then how
Mhm.
often do you see the first baseman not be able to catch the ball? Even also pretty often, right? So all three things have to happen perfectly at the youth level. And these youth kids, they're too afraid of not hitting the ball far, right? They're so worried about the home run, the home run, the home
Yeah.
run. When as an umpire, right, as a coach, it drives you crazy when you could have like beautifully run games if people were just swinging, at their zone and had an approach. So I think that's big as well. Like, be okay with the ground ball because there's no reason to be upset if you got on base because they made an error. You did your job too.
And I'll say this, and I actually kind of picked up this habit when I was at Avila. My first 2 rounds, because we once you get to college, you actually do live BP every day in practice, every day before a game. And it just blows my mind because when you're in high school, you don't get live BP on the field, but when you get to that college pro level, you do before every game.
Right.
And the mentality I would have is my first because we'd get 4 rounds, 4 or 5 rounds, depending on how much time we had, and we'd get 5 swings per round. My first 2, 3 rounds, I was swinging at maybe 60%. And my mentality behind it was let's do the swing correctly and let's see if we can generate backspin taking a 50% swing. And when I would take a 50% swing and generate backspin, it's like, oh, wow. If I take this swing at 100% and I do that backspin, now I can really do some damage. And my philosophy when I coach my players is do I want them to hit home runs? I love it. I love getting the messages from the family saying my son hit his first home run ever. I'm like, yeah, like that's the goal. But I'm like, but home runs aren't the end all be all. My purpose with my system, my training is for you to hit every ball as hard as you possibly can. And I've smoked some ground balls and I've also
Absolutely.
smoked some line drives. And when you square it up perfectly, you're like, oh man, I just got a little on top of that ball, but man, like that ball was hit very hard.
Hard. Yes.
And I remember I even got into a bad place, especially because when we were playing at Wild Things Ballpark, you're playing on a turf field, so there are no bad hops. Now I
Mhm.
would hit a ball on the ground, I'd be pissed off. But I'd talk to opposing players, and they're like, "Dude, you've never been on the other end of one of your ground balls. You're hitting it hard, but you're just so pissed off that it hit the ground because I admit, I did start to buy into that, "Oh, I gotta drive the ball over the fence" mentality, but when I finally, like, let go of that mentality and went more towards the, "Oh, my job is to drive in runs," I didn't care how I did it, so now I'm hitting ground balls up the middle, line drives in the gap, balls off the fence or over the fence, and it's like, "Okay, now this is my purest form of swing," and what I teach my players is, "Look, when you take your swing, we're not looking to do cage bombs, we're not looking to hit bombs off the tee, but when you do it right, you're going to feel it." And some of these kids will look at me like I'm a nut job. Like, what do you mean I'm going to feel it? And I tell them the steps, what it needs to do, what you need to do to make it feel right. And they'll do it correctly. And they're just like, dude, I smoked that ball and I felt like I barely put any effort. And it's like, yes. And then we'll hit on the field or in the cage. And it's like, that might be a cage bomb or whatever, but do you see the backspin? Do you see the carry? Yeah, that's a legit pure swing. That is the purest form I want you to chase. And if it happens to go, some of these backspin balls will carry and go over the fence. Others might die at the warning track, but that's still a double. And the way I tell it is, look, you want to take your best swing, and if you miss hit it, but you still hit a rocket up the middle on the ground, are you really gonna piss and moan that you got a single up the middle? Are you really gonna be upset about that? And these boys are like, okay, like, so that's the mentality. If they take a great swing and they do it right and it comes off hot, now it's like, okay, like, I smoked that ball.
Yeah, it's back to that no regrets attitude, dude. Like,
Mhm.
if you get out in baseball, it's one of the only sports where you gotta wait, it could be 2, 3 innings, it could be an hour, right? Plus before
Mhm.
you're able to contribute to your offense again. So you don't
Yeah.
wanna walk off the field, thinking that you put a crap swing on the ball whenever, like you said, hit the ball hard no matter what, and
Yeah.
something good will happen eventually, right?
Mhm.
I think, yeah, just guys are too worried about all of that, and they just need to focus on that line drive up the middle approach.
Well, I remember too, my senior year at Avila, I started the season 2 for 14, and we were on the road, so no one got to see our season opener. And people were asking me when I got back to school, "You're not the same player you were last year. Like, what happened last year? This time you were hitting 600." And I was like, "Look, last year, that time you're right. I was hitting 600 in the first 3 games of the season, which that could happen to anyone if they get 2 or 3 hits in 4 at bats.
Right, right.
But that first series I had my senior year, I took great swings. My 2 hits were doubles. And it's like everything else, fly out to the warning track that died a foot in front of the fence. What else? What are you going to do? Line
Yeah,
drive at the second baseman, line drive at the third baseman. Oh, deep fly ball to right field, died at the warning track. And it's kind of like my only hits that fell physically had to go way over a player's head for it to fall. But I had some bad luck that first series because I just kept hitting everything right at people. And it's like, that's why I say stats don't always tell the full story.
for sure. But dude, on the flip side of that, you have guys like me where the stats are super important, right?
Hmm.
Because I'm not a tryout guy. You
No,
got
of
all these you
course.
got all these PBR kids, and we'll get into that too. But there's a difference between a tryout guy and somebody who's actually gonna be effective on the mound.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
I think we saw that the effectiveness, especially in the Yinzer dude, it wasn't the guys who were throwing 9s plus, because normally, and I umpired a lot of those games, those guys were the ones walking a lot of people.
Hmm.
And it was a walk show, a walk fest, and runs started getting scored. And even though they threw hard, those guys could time up a fastball. So after a walk, walk, now we're talking double, 2 runs score, and now they're in a crappy situation, right?
Yeah.
But where the hell was I going with that? Where was I going with that?
You said that stats matter for you, but you're
Oh, yeah.
also
So for a guy like me, right, I'm not blowing you off the charts with velocity, right? But I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna be effective. So yeah, I go to these tryouts and they look at my, velocity numbers, and it's like there's better, right? There's so much better. And I acknowledge that. But when you see me in the Yinzer and you see me pitching and attacking these professional hitters, it's totally different. If you looked at my stats versus my, metrics, it's 2 different baseball players, right?
oh yeah.
So I pride myself on my stats because I know that if I walk into a tryout, I think April 20 something is the Frontier League draft again.
Hmm.
It's like, you guys, that's why the tour is beneficial
Oh, yeah.
because, they're gonna see me at they're gonna see me at the draft, and they're gonna be like, "Alright, he's around the zone, but his velocity sucks."
Yeah, and
I
that's
know that about myself for a fact, but now I take the tour, but now I go beat their hitters, and it's
yeah.
like, "Alright, well, maybe that velocity isn't important because I haven't seen a guy from here and here in how long?"
No, it's true, especially because at the end of the day, like, and this is one thing, I remember going to a Phillies workout, out of college, and, you're walking in there and I'm thinking, "Okay, I'm better than a lot of these guys at the tryout, like a better baseball player." But
Did you do that based on just the eye test?
yeah, that no, 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 just not the eye test. I'd played against some of these guys in college. I had, seen them play before, and I'm like, okay, baseball player to baseball player, I think I'm the better player.
No, I know
But
exactly what you're talking about because I walked into
but
that
it,
draft the first time, and a lot of the guys were from the Yinzer, and I was like, "Alright,
yeah,
well, I know I'm better than 60% of the people off the bat."
and but the thing is, what these players had in front of me was they could throw gas from the outfield. They could stand in a batting practice, take 10 swings, and hit 6 bombs on command. And when I'm taking batting practice, I'm not trying to hit home runs on command. I'm just trying to find my swing. But
Mhm.
when you go to those workouts, it's not about finding your swing and being a ball player. It's like, okay, we got to showcase our tools. We got to throw gas from the outfield. The one thing that would always kill me, that's one thing that sucked about being an outfield. I had to run below a 6'8", 60.
Yeah, you
And
gotta be fast, real
I've
fast.
never done that. And it was just kind of one of those things where you run that 60 and they, even though I showcase I can hit and play defense, they were like, he doesn't have the speed, so you're written off. And it's one of those things that we would always joke with certain players, like they're the 5 o'clock hitters. They look good in the showcase. They can drop the bomb, but the minute you turn the lights on at 7 o'clock, it's a ball game. There's fans in the stands. All of a sudden, you can't hit the side of a barn.
Yep.
Or my dad's favorite expression, you couldn't hit an elephant in the ass with an ironing board.
Alright, dude, well, I think we got about 20 minutes left. Let's hear just 1 or 2 good stories that is a core memory of your college experience.
All right.
Let's wrap it up with where we were starting.
I want you to go first. I'm
Me?
curious as to
Alright, dude. So I think my greatest college memory, and again, it was club ball, so we only stayed in a hotel like 1 or 2 times. It's not like we were traveling crazy. Like we played Ohio teams, so it was just like over the border and then right back home and then go back on Sunday. Hour and a half drive, nothing crazy. But we played against WVU, and anybody from the East Coast knows the Pitt WVU rivalry. But even the same with Duquesne, we're pretty much Pitt's sister school right there.
yeah.
So we played WVU at Wild Things Park, and again, I got lucky because I've played more games on Wild Things Park than I have anywhere else. So it's like home for me. Um, I was slated to start the second game, and I was playing shortstop the first game. And it was cold. It was cold enough that I had my big camo hunting jacket and my hand warmer, my hat. Like, dude, I was loaded up with warm gear. My mom shows up, my two little sisters, real young, my other little sister, she was there, and they're underneath these big ass blankets sitting in the crowd right behind home plate. And from the very first pitch, it was beautiful weather, just cold.
Yeah.
And the first
Oh,
pitch,
I understand that.
exactly, yeah, Pittsburgh weather, it sucks.
Yeah.
From the first pitch, dude, the first snowflake fell, and just Pittsburgh weather pattern, it just the skies opened up. And we're
Mhm.
playing with a white baseball pants, and snow is just flurrying from the sky. And I'm at shortstop. You cannot see the ball off the bat. Our pitcher up there, he's walking the world around. Their pitcher's walking the world around. Long story short, we make it through the entire first game, and nobody's able to see a baseball to the point that there is now a layer of snow on the ground.
Jesus Christ.
So now at this point, the umpires are still there. We're getting ready to play game 2 with, like, accumulation of snow. We're drawing stuff in the snow. We're playing games back and forth with the WVU kids. Everyone's running around, diving and whatnot because it's fun, right?
Yeah.
and I took pictures with my catcher, Carmen. Great guy. He was my catcher since we were 9 through college, man. And that's just what that was my core memory of college baseball is just how cold that day was. And then my start ended up getting scratched as I walked out to the mound to start game 2. The umpires, we had a half hour break. Everyone had lunch. Everyone warmed up. They got back to the field and they were like, "Yeah, we're not doing this." I was like, oh, I was so excited to pitch in the cold because I love pitching in the cold, right? I'm from the East Coast. Fall ball's my vibe. I love it because I know the hitters don't feel comfortable, and I'm able to wear a long sleeve, just be warm and do my thing. But
Nice.
yeah, that was upsetting. I missed that start, especially against WVU. But it was fun. It was fun while it lasted, and I still have the pictures. It's gorgeous up on that field.
Nah, it's funny because I've got thousands of stories that I could tell. And, I had an idea of what story, like, where Coach Kronk, got on us for grades, which I feel like that's for another episode. Because after the story you just told, I got to just say, being a California kid, I played my first couple years in junior college. The coldest game I'd ever played in at the time when I was a Santa Ana was like maybe
65 degrees.
58 degrees, where it was a little bit of some rain and a little bit of a little bit of wind, and the clouds were dark. So like that was a cold game. I remember being bundled up for that game. We were at Saddleback and I wasn't playing in that game. So it was just like, you're when you're not playing in those games, you're just bundled up as best as you can.
Chilling, yeah, straight up chilling.
And when I got to Avila, one of the big things I had to adapt to was the weather because I'd never played in anything colder than 58. And if it was colder than 58, it was probably like 62, but like with a massive wind chill, which made it feel like 52 or 48. But now we're playing at Avila, and at the start of the fall, it's still like August, September, so it's still hot in Missouri. But then once October starts creeping in, now it's starting to get a little chillier. We're doing our Fall World Series, which ironically that was a story I was going to tell, which was about the Fall World Series. But my first year playing there, I'd never played in anything colder than 58. So now I'm playing my first Fall World Series game. It's 40 degrees, and my gloves were crusty. And what my dad would always tell me to do is put the batting gloves in the bag to keep them moist. So now I'm wearing wet gloves. It's 40 degrees.
Oh,
I'm miserable. Oh, and make it worse, I'm facing our ace pitcher, and I am struggling hitting the sliders all fall. So now I'm like, dude, if I don't turn around his, high 80s, low 90s fastball, or turn around his slider, my hands are gonna hurt. I didn't know how to adapt, so it was a
yeah,
lot of
you're gonna
like,
crush your
my
hands.
like even though like I hit my 360 my first year at Avila, I had to adapt to cold weather because I'd never played in it before. Like I had to wear special like I don't know how to describe it, but it's like a long sleeve that is padded for cold games. I had to
Mhm.
buy what Franklin weather gloves that were wind resistant, and I would smash those hand warmers and keep them in my glove because my fingers were the first thing that went cold. So it was just like it was something that was just so different. And what's funny is like being in Kansas City at Avila University, I embraced that culture. Like I was the only Cali kid where it was funny. A lot of my Cali teammates would bundle up like crazy for the games, especially when the spring started. Because when you're talking about your game against WVU and everything, it's like you guys are cold, but you're like enjoying it.
Right,
And
yeah, we're
and
used to it.
and it also sounded like it was an April game. Am I correct?
It was early, dude. It might have been February or March. I mean, it was
Well,
it was stupid timing. It was stupid timing
yeah.
for Pittsburgh.
Well, when we're playing in that time of year, we're still in that phase of okay, we're hoping for a 45-degree game with the sun out. And all my Cali boys, no matter if it was a sunny game or a windy game, they had like 3 layers and they had the face masks on. And I was like, I can't let these Missouri guys out tough me. So even though I'm freezing, I'm going to go in as little layers as possible to show how tough I am. And it was funny too because you build a relationship. I built a relationship with Coach Kronk. It was a slow build, but he loved how much I like to win. And
Mhm.
I was very competitive, and we're playing Mount Mercy. And I think that was the game where even though I was already having a good season and it was our conference opener, that was like the Tommy Blood has arrived game because it starts off we're playing and Mount Mercy was talking a little bit of shit and our team was talking a little bit back, and the next thing you know we have a freshman that's hitting and he takes a swing and it and I was already having a good game, so I was just fired up. He takes a swing and it hits the catcher in the bat, like off the backswing. So Mount Mercy's now livid. They're talking at the freshman, and they're acting like the freshman purposely backswung and hit this catcher. And they threw up and in at him, which I didn't think much of. They threw behind him, and then they drill him on the third one. As soon as they hit
Oh,
him, I'm off the bench. And what's funny is it's my first year at Avila, but I'm still a junior because I'd already played a couple years of college at Santa Ana. So
right.
now I'm thinking of the freshman, this 18, 19-year-old kid that he didn't do it on purpose. They hit him, and they're like, "Yeah, serves you." I jump up and I'm losing. I'm chirping at them.
You're ready to go to war for the
Yeah,
kid.
and then they're chirping at me, and one guy starts mouthing off in Spanish. I start mouthing off in Spanish, and they're like, "Oh my god, he's lost his mind." And it was just like kind of back and forth. And the assistant coach was like, "Get your ass back in the dugout." And I'm like, "Nah, fuck that shit." I was fired up. And next
Dude,
thing you
that's the
know,
greatest thing. I love
you,
yelling at umpires in Spanish around here.
oh,
They don't have a
dude,
clue.
well, because I was just amped up because it was a good game. We actually went into extra innings that game. And then, when they're throwing out a freshman, there's just so much, and they'd won the first game of the series. So they're just fire. And then as the bases starts getting loaded, I'm about to come up to hit, and I'm like, "Oh, bro, like this is my moment." And I didn't learn all my techniques till pro ball, so like I was just kind of free swinging. But I remember the assistant coach who really helped me a lot that season with my hitting. There was their hitting coach Kryling who helped me, but the assistant coach Drew Lutzky who helped me with what was going on up here because I was a head case when I was younger.
Mhm.
Tells me, "Hey, like this is a big situation. You need to calm down, lose the fire for one at bat, and just don't try to do too much."
Yeah, dude, the sports
And
psychology
yeah,
aspect is huge.
yeah. And I swear to God, I get in there, first pitch, they throw it right down the middle. I take a daddy hack and I foul it straight back. I think to that swing, and I'm like, man, if I keep my head down and see what I'm hitting, that ball goes over the fence. But nope, I just pulled the head, pulled it, and I fouled it back. And you just hear my whole dog go, ooh. And I was like, mother of God. Like, I was pissed. 'Cause I'm like, dude, that was the home run swing. And
Yep.
then, you fight, you get into a 2-2 count, and they're playing in because they want to block, they don't want the run to score. We had less than two. And then next thing you know, I get slightly jammed where it's like I hit it hard, but I didn't get a complete barrel on it. But I was able to hit it through the infield. And when it went through, we won the game. So I hit first, I jump up, I chest bump my buddy more. I'm pumped. And that was like that, you've arrived, and everyone's going nuts. And we were talking after the game, and Coach Cron comes up, smirks, and he says, you are nuts." And I'm just like, I was like, just a little bit,
Just a little bit, coach, just a
just a
little
little
bit.
bit. But it was like kind of like that was my crowning, like that was probably one of my favorite moments at Avila because it's like I was already for the boys, but like that was the whole, oh, he's for the boys.
That's it. Well, dude, 7 minutes left. This hour flew by, don't you think?
They
I
always
feel
do whenever we're
it did.
on the
It
air.
ran right by. For the next episode, for the people who stuck with us this long, maybe we post some stuff on social media, kind of get some fan interaction going,
Mhm.
see what other people would like to hear, and kind of start building that into a podcast each week.
Yeah, you know what? I know me and Justin are gonna plan the next one out, and I wanted to free fall this one so they can get to know myself, get to know you. I'm the hitting side, you're the pitching side, and just one of those moments where it's like, okay, like who are our viewers actually talking to? We're not just a bunch of like we've gone through it, and you know I wanted to give a couple of my college experiences, and same with yours, just so these boys know, like, hey, like what we do in college is pretty special. And I want a lot of my players to experience stories like that. And, like, you remember the gas station trips, you remember the road trips, and you remember like
Oh
the,
yeah, dude, it's the best part. It's the best part. It's the lifestyle.
dude, I don't know what it's like for my brother when they go on the road and they're staying in a hotel, but I remember we would have four to a hotel room, and you had to share a bed. And unless it, thank God I never stayed with the pitchers. Thank God, because the starting pitcher always got a bed to himself, and I
You
wasn't trying to I wasn't
absolutely
trying to
right,
sleep in
we
a bed
do.
with
You are
three dudes.
absolutely right, we do. Yeah, the one time we stayed at a hotel, I think we got 2 hotel rooms for our entire team. So we had, like, 12 dudes per room.
Good lord.
And you know what? I of the 2 queen beds, I had 1, the catcher had 1, and then everybody else slept on the floors and the mattresses. I didn't care because,
Yeah.
like I said, you saw who the workhorse was, right? So,
Oh, yeah.
I knew I was going out that weekend and throwing a lot of innings, so I was sleeping good.
No, you
Sorry.
can you can I
Sorry,
respect
not
that.
sorry, but,
It was always times where you're like, "Oh, thank God I'm not in the starting pitcher's room. I do not have to triple bet it." But, like, I actually remember there was one of my teammates who would bring his own blow up mattress, which was
Yep.
kinda dope. So it's like, oh, like, you always wanted to be in his room because you knew, "Oh, hey, I'm at least getting a bed."
Hey, pitchers are also freaky. You gotta watch out for us, man. You
I
put a
mean,
bunch of
dude,
pitchers together in one room, you ain't know what's gonna happen. That's
dude,
why the what happens in the bullpen stays in the bullpen.
I swear to God, the things I would do in college, like, I remember we'd be in the trainer's room before games. And my ass would, do my routine, my stretches, my mobility, or actually it wasn't so much mobility, but I would just do things to get my body hot.
Right.
Other of my players would go get scraped and everything, and we had a shortstop, and he would take his shirt off, get his bicep or his chest scraped, and there would be soccer, football players, dance girls, soccer girls, or even softball players in there. And instead of checking out the girls like a normal guy, what am I doing? Damn, Burns, you fine. Maddie Cole's a lucky girl. And oh my God, the uncomfort of all the athletes, like, dude, he's flirting with his shortstop. And I'm just
Well,
like,
yeah,
what
dude,
the
we'll treat our throwing partners better than our wives. You know what I mean?
I remember one of the times I was like, I think a couple of my teammates had their shirts on, they're getting worked on. And I'm like, damn, you fine. And one of the football players like, dude, I gotta get the hell out of here, man. This is too much brotherly love over here.
That's how it is. It's a baseball player mindset, though. I know that for sure.
Baseball players are a different breed. Like, that's all I gotta say. And you just gotta learn to love it.
You embrace the culture. That's
Well, I
all.
love it. I love it when I go to bars. I'll like have a conversation and someone, you played baseball, didn't you? And I'm like, what gave it away? They're like, just how you carry yourself, how you walk and how you talk. And I'm just like, dude, I'm part of a culture and I love it.
Confidence, baby. We're walking around with that confidence.
Yeah, you never feel like when you're with other baseball players, you just gravitate towards them?
Absolutely. Always. Anytime I'm anywhere, I always find myself around a baseball family, client, or player themselves.
It's the funniest thing because I remember before I went to the California Winter League, I went to this club uh, called the District, and I was with a group of girls, and we were just hanging out, and these girls are like, "Oh, we're trying to flirt with those 4 dudes." I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm the only guy here, but you're not
Go ahead,
flirting
hey,
with
I'm
me
right
yet."
here, guys.
But they start flirting. They start talking to these dudes, and then one of the guys and I, like, we're looking at each other while he's trying to flirt with one of my friends, and like, he's not paying attention to the girl, and like, we're just making eye contact, and he's like, "You look familiar," and I was like, "Yeah, you do too." And I told him who I was. I'm Tommy Blood. And he was like, "Oh my God, I remember you. I played against you when I was at El Medina High School,
Yep.
and I played against you when you were at Avila and I was at Hope." And I was like, no kidding. And then I started talking to the other guys, and one of the other guys, his brother was my college teammate at Santa Ana. So now there's 4 baseball, but we all know each other. And it goes from these girls and these guys are talking to now me and the 4 baseball players are all talking to each other. These girls are just like, they just completely ignored the girls. And they're
Off
like,
on their own.
yeah, they're just like, what the hell just happened? And I'm like, I didn't mean to steal your dates, but the
That's
baseball
just
culture,
how it
man.
is.
Yeah, baseball players they gravitate towards one another and they just, the
It's the
oh,
best. It's the best.
it's
But
also just such a crazy small world.
indeed, dude, I run into people all over the place and
Yeah,
just anyway, like I said, any of the 50 states, there's just you run into somebody who you've been on a field with or somebody who knows somebody.
it's funny
We
when
were
I
in we were in, Cooperstown, and we ran into a bunch of Canadian baseball players, and they all knew, like, Smybert and stuff like that.
shocker, who
It's like
doesn't know
it's like,
Sniper?
yeah, we were all just random baseball dudes from 2 different countries, and we all connected through one guy that we knew. It was the craziest thing.
Well, that's the funny thing about it is when you're doing stuff like I coached the JV team, and next thing you know, or even Roddy's baseball, and I'll know another coach because I played against him or I played against his brother, and like I'm just like, oh, dude. And then my player's like, how do you know everyone? I'm just like, he umpired a couple of my games. I played against this dude. I played against that guy's bro. And it's just, they're like, how long? They're like, you just stopped playing 2 years ago. I'm like, yeah, I'm still decently connected.
They call me the mayor for a reason.
I thought they called you the doc.
Well, that too. I'm a man of many nicknames here, Tommy.
Yeah.
But dude, to wrap this up here, I think we're at our hour mark. Going into next episode, our high school tryouts will be Monday and Tuesday. We'll pick teams on Wednesday, and we will be getting into the swing of our season. So I think it's a good thing to talk about guys who maybe got cut, right? Because we've both been in close, at least similar
Yes.
situations. Kind of how to handle that, how to bounce back, and then the guys who do make the team, what are you guys implementing out there in California? How can we implement that in Pittsburgh, vice versa? And some coaching philosophies that we both fall behind, and
Yeah.
what makes us successful as coaches.
And I feel one thing before we get off the air is we should teach people how to poise themselves out of tryout, whether it be a high school tryout. Colleges, you don't. I mean, they have a tryout, which we'll talk about that in the next episode, which in my opinion is kind of a bunch of BS. Those
Agreed.
college tryouts, but
Agreed.
like it's one of those things where it's like how to poise yourself, how to do this, how to have the etiquette. And it's not just for high school tryouts, but it's for the showcases and everything. Because, I remember that scout from Billings that came to watch us play in South Florida. He said, scouts of any level, we're looking for a reason to say no to you. And when he told me that, it's like, why do you look for reasons to say no? And they're like, because at the end of the day, we don't know if we're going to sign the next Mike Trout or the next guy that's going to get us fired because we made a terrible decision. So they're looking for reasons to say no. And I want to teach the boys, we're not going to give them a reason to tell you no.
That's it. That's exactly it. Just go into those tryouts with the guy to my left is either going to be my teammate or my biggest competition,
Yeah.
and give it your all. And all the work everyone's put in all winter is gonna either come and pay off or show that you still need a little bit more work.
Yes, sir. But anyway, let's sign off the air and we will see you guys next week.
We'll get a little paw wave from Miss Rue over here.
Oh, she is so cute. I got to
Uh,
bring my dog in for the next one.
say hi. Well, baby, that's the hot corner rant.
Yes, sir. We will see you guys next week.
I'll see you, buddy.